right now. Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We've got things to talk about on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome inside the Fan Cave. This is the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. We take your calls nightly here at 412-575-2600. You can also hit us up on X or Twitter at KDPomp, at the Pony Express. Andrew Fillipponi up at 93.7 The Fan. What has been a busy day of news, finding out, of course, injuries from the Steelers game yesterday. Both Isaiah Loudermilk and Alex Highsmith have high ankle sprains. And then today we saw around the league Joe Burrow. Went for a second opinion, but apparently the decision is surgery on his turf toe. He's going to be out for 3 months, and that means the Steelers won't see him likely this year. And then you saw J.J. McCarthy out 2 to 4 weeks, which means you're going to see probably Carson Wentz in Ireland against them. Andrew, this has been a wild and wacky couple of days, but let's go back to yesterday first and foremost. And what we saw from this defense, which again is the big problematic area, I think, because it's now a trend. It goes back 10 games.
Yeah, they've given up almost 28 points per game. Now, a touchdown was Caleb Johnson's fault, so they really gave up 24, but still, you had Kenneth Walker average over 8 yards per carry. You had Jackson Smith and Jigba go over 100 yards. You had Cooper Kupp chip in big yards. Sam Darnold threw 2 interceptions, but for the most part was in command and in control of the game. It was 3rd and 19, 3rd and goal at the 19-yard line.
Never saw that before.
All Seattle wanted was a field goal.
They played for a field goal. They played. Here, we're going to run the ball.
Exactly.
Stop us.
And Kenneth Walker scored an untouched touchdown, which pretty much put the game on ice. It's been a problem that has gone on for way too long, based on what the Steelers invest in defense and how they act and pretend that they have an elite defense. They punted on 4th and 1 because Mike Tomlin trusted his defense if Seattle was pinned in deep. Well, instead, they drove downfield, kicked a field goal, put themselves up 3, and that's when the horrible Caleb Johnson incident happened right after that.
Yeah, I mean, if you do have a good defense and you're in that kind of game, I can understand conceptually why you would do it. If you're 4th and 1 and you figure, okay, we're going to pin them, they haven't done anything against our defense, but it was the opposite of that, which meant you wanted to keep the ball as much as possible away from that defense the way they were playing, and they did not do it. And as a result, 3 turned into 10 points, and the game was pretty much over. Let's talk real quick about that Caleb Johnson play, because in cases like this, I generally blame players, because I can't imagine coaches don't go over this with a fine-tooth comb. I mean, these new rules have been in now for 2 years. He's a rookie, I know. He's probably still thinking in college mode, but you can't do that, especially if he thought that hit him. And even if you're unsure, you go back. You don't just walk over the field. Well,
that might be true, but I question why he's back there returning kicks in the first place.
I agree, and that's a totally different topic. But he's there. So.
Well, but to me, that's a legitimate topic, because if he's not back there, if you've got somebody else, that play doesn't happen. I don't understand why.
But that doesn't excuse him or them. I mean, they have to know this, regardless of who's back there, regardless how inexperienced the person is.
Fair enough. I mean, he's got to know it, but the coaches need to know their players, and they need to have an understanding of their roster and what players' strengths and weaknesses are. I'm sorry, Caleb Johnson did not look good returning kicks against the Jets. He almost fumbled a return in that game. So he does not have breakaway speed. He had one of the slowest 40 times. You've got guys like Calvin Austin, Jaylen Warren, Kenneth Gainwell, Scotty Miller, Roman Wilson. I just named 5 guys off the top of my head who I think are all better return men. And so to have him back there, it's like they're trying to shoehorn him into the game, and they're trying to include him into the game, even though that's not a strength. His strength at Iowa was being a punishing back, Bob, who got better with carries. He's a volume runner. He's not a play here or there guy. He's a feature back type. He's not a kick returner. And so they paid the ultimate price, in my opinion, for trying to make him into something he's not. He does not run away from people at all. It's a miracle if he returns the ball back to the 35-yard line, in my opinion. It's just an odd fit. And I didn't think he was going to be that, commit that kind of boneheaded mistake, but he he doesn't help them as a return man, even when he's not forgetting the rule.
No,
Bob, it's not his strength.
And we saw him in preseason. He didn't do anything to distinguish himself as someone who should have that job to start the season. And as you mentioned, a fumble last week, and now this. I can't imagine he's going to be back there this year, but we'll find out tomorrow on the Mike Tomlin press conference, which is at noon, and you'll see it right here on KDKA+. In the meantime, you see our Penn West University poll of the night, KDK.com Connect. It says, what do you think the Steelers' record will be by the end of September? Your choices, 3-1, 2-2, or 1-3. Andrew, real quick before we go to break, what's your take on those three choices?
I'd probably pick 2-2.
Yeah, me too.
I don't think they're going to go to New England and Dublin and win both games. They haven't won in New England since their Super Bowl winning year in 2008. And I understand Tom Brady played a lot of those games, but they've also lost to Bailey Zappi in that time frame. Okay, he came here on a Thursday night and won. So
Yep.
I just don't trust this team with the way their defense is playing right now to beat anybody away from Acrisure Stadium. And Bob, that win against the Jets looks worse and worse, doesn't it?
Absolutely. After what Buffalo did to
Mitch
them.
Trubisky, Mitch had more passing yards than Justin Fields on one play,
Yes, he
where
did.
he went in for Josh Allen.
Yes, he did. And around the league, you see Daniel Jones, who's had all these possessions, and they've turned them all into points.
Well, you
they
and me
haven't
saw
punted.
that.
Huh?
Me and you were on the Daniel Jones.
I liked him. If there was an alternate pick, it would have been him. But there's another guy out there. We're going to talk about him when we come back. Baker Mayfield, who put on a show tonight when it mattered most. It was a gutsy performance down the end to beat the Texans in Houston. In the meantime, we want your calls at 412-575-2600. Call us. This is the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. We are live on KDKA+. All right, welcome back. This is our Xfinity tweet of the night. Daniel Valente, who does a very good job, Stats Guy Daniel on Twitter. And this is pretty alarming. I know it's only 2 games, but it is in a 17-week season, a pretty good chunk of percentage of the schedule. Look at these numbers here, Andrew. 31st in success rate. Everything else is 29th except the bottom, which is positional spending. Number 1 in terms of highest paid defense, but the other numbers just don't add up. But that's where they are after 2 games, and they have a trip, to New England. They came off a win yesterday. And I will say this, that I think Drake May is getting more and more confident. You watch him in the pocket against the Dolphins yesterday, very, very confident from there. It's not going to be an easy game at all. And I know the Steelers are slight favorites in that game. I'm a little surprised by that on the road.
So am I. I mean, Drake May right now is not going to take a backseat to Aaron Rodgers in that game. I don't think Aaron Rodgers has been bad by any means, but I don't think the Steelers have a clear quarterback advantage. New England's offensive line is an area that the Steelers should be able to exploit. They commit a ton of penalties. They're very young. But this defensive line has been a catastrophe in football terms so far. Keanu Benton looks like he's regressed to the point where he's barely playable. Cam Hayward still seems to be working out the kinks of his offseason hold-in, although he did have that batted down ball that led to the Herbig interception, which was a big play. The other defensive end spot, really, it's Y.A. Black, I guess, right now, who I thought had a very strong preseason, but that hasn't translated yet into regular season success as a first-year player. So when you let Kenneth Walker go for 8 yards a carry, when last week I think he had under 20 yards for the entire game against the San Francisco defense, that is definitely cause for concern because this keeps happening over and over and over and over again. And the defensive guys know that now, Bob, and when they have to talk about it after games, you can tell they're as shocked, surprised, and disappointed and angry as a lot of the fans are. Yeah,
8 yards a pop yesterday. Last week on first down, the Jets got 8.1 yards per play. And then if you look at their total rushing numbers at 182, all of it is unacceptable for a team that prides itself in what it prides itself in, and that is making plays defensively. All right, we're going to go to our number 1 Cochran Go One Better caller of the night, beginning with Joe in Monroeville. Joe, how are you tonight?
Hey, Bob and Pony, thanks for taking my call. My question is, why don't they move T.J. Watt around instead of having him coming in from the left end? I mean, they end up putting 2 tight ends there plus the tackle, so he's got to go through 3 guys instead of having him move around the pocket like they did with was it the guy from the Rams, the former guy from the Rams? Well, anyway, they
Donald, right?
They
You're
just
talking about
seem
Aaron
like
Donald?
He comes in from the left side, and they can just be waiting there for
Well,
him.
listen, I thought they did do a little bit of that. Not as much as I agree they should. In fact, yesterday, if you look at that play where I thought it was a key play in this game, 3rd and 9, and they had them in 3rd and 9 a lot, and they turned in big plays out of 3rd and 9, which is never a good sign. But they had Sam Darnold dead to rights. It was Patrick Queen, I believe, who blitzed up the middle, had him, he spun away. Watt lined up on that side, if I'm not mistaken, and took an inside route to create the vacancy that he used to make a big play.
Well, if you look at the running chart, all the runs the first 2 weeks have been to the left.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just force the other team to make an adjustment. Do they want to run right at TJ Watt? Apparently they don't currently. So dare them to go to the right side. That's what I would do. Make them switch it up. And the Steelers are reluctant to do that. They said they would do it more. They did it a little bit against the Jets. I think they did it even less in this game. You can't be so predictable. You brought up that Queen blitz. I thought they had 2 plays where they blitzed where it looked like they were going to have success. Peyton Wilson sack, and then Patrick Queen was in position to make a play there, Bob. Sam Darnold has shown that when you pressure him and he doesn't expect the pressure to come from that place, he can get very confused. That's why he struggled so mightily at the end of last year. And we've seen him talk about seeing ghosts before. So I would have done stuff like that to make him panic more in this game. They seem convinced that they can get pressure with their front 4, but when that's not happening, Bob, you got to be able to evolve and adjust, and I just have not seen enough of that in these first 2 games.
And they also, yesterday, were targeting, crazy as it sounds, Jalen Ramsey, and he was victimized by first that 5th-round pick who got in the end zone from 21 yards out.
Horton.
Troy Horton, whatever his name was. He's a 5th-round pick, and I didn't expect him to make plays yesterday, given what they have on the receiving end. But even Jackson Smith and Jigma, he was all over the place and taking him on. And then there was a 43-yarder late in the game. Now, with that, you also get good Jalen Ramsey, who's capable of closing on a play and making an interception. By the way, we have a couple of tweets here we're going to get to, and this is from, first of all, Kamish158. And he says, unfortunately, the national media has already decided a 2-man race for MVP is Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. That was in response to something I put up because I believe my pick was Baker Mayfield. We saw him tonight in action, and boy, I thought that was as clutch drive as you can get. They got him for really not much. When he first went to Tampa, he was a backup, and he was making like $4 million after he spent a short time with the Rams. And then they signed him after they saw what he could do. He got in there. And made things happen. He got a $100 million deal. That was available to everyone, including the Steelers. But I think he's good enough after 41 touchdowns last year to be an MVP candidate. I realize he's up against those 2. Your thoughts on him and them?
Well, it was a mistake by the Steelers. I mean, they went with Mitch Trubisky and Kenny Pickett instead, and clearly those guys are not even in the same league as Baker Mayfield. They play in the NFL, but they're not on his level as a quarterback. I also give Tampa Bay credit because they've had to hire 3 offensive coordinators for Mayfield. Why? Because they've had success and those guys have gotten poached for head coaching jobs. And this goes back to Mike Tomlin, and people get sick of hearing this, but it's the truth. The coaching tree point is this. It's not so much what those guys do when they become head coaches, because a lot of Bill Belichick's guys failed. They did not do well outside of New England. But it's the fact that those guys did so well with the Patriots that they were wanted by other teams. And that has not happened here in 18 years under Mike Tomlin. And that, to me, is an indictment on him, that you're telling me none of your assistants are head coach caliber or quality in almost 20 years of doing the job. You got a job when you were in your mid-30s. You're telling me you can't find a young guy who's climbing the coaching ladder to coordinate your offense or defense? Bobby's never done it.
No.
It's the AARP club with his assistant coaches. He always goes for the old guys.
Well, here's the other thing to support your point. When you look at Dan Campbell now, he had both coordinators gone, and this does not suggest that they're going to be successful because both Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn are 0-2 to start this season, and Detroit just put a number on Ben Johnson in that game yesterday. So it doesn't mean, Matt Patricia, he didn't turn out to be in it. Josh McDaniels turned out not to be anything, but they were very good coordinators who end up going back to coordinate after they couldn't do it as a head coach. Real quick, I want to go back to the lines. We got Steve in Pittsburgh. Steve, make it quick, please.
Yeah, hey, real quick, guys. Andrew, thanks for stealing a lot of my points. Appreciate that. So go back 3 years, and when you had the bogus QB competition with Rudolph, Pickett, and Trubinsky. Now today, you talk about the progression, QB progression. Well, you know what? They didn't have the protection for the progression. He's getting way more time now, Rodgers is, than what those guys had, okay? And then when you want to talk about the records of head coaches, Tom Landry's the only one that won 20 years in a row.
Yeah, it's harder to do as you get along the way. And there's a lot of, like we talked when Mike Sullivan, it just, there comes a time sometimes where it's just time for a change. It's not an indictment of anyone. He's a great coach. He was immediately scooped up by the Rangers, but there is a time and a place for that. All I know is that they got to get this thing together here, Andrew, because if they don't, they're going to fall behind. And if this Penn West University poll is any indication, most people believe there'll be 1 and 3. I don't think it'll be like that. We got to take a break. I think 2 and 2, as you suggest, is a better way to look at this, but who knows? We'll be back with more right after this on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. Two minutes remaining in the show. 2 minutes. Let's go out to Jim in Peters Township, who will fill 30 seconds. Jim, go ahead.
Yeah, hey, guys. With the poor offensive line they have and the defensive line can't stop the run and only one receiver that's good, Metcalf, they double team, I don't see how anyone thinks they're going to be more than a 500 ball club.
It also makes you think, they spent all of last year looking for a number 2. They traded number 1s, essentially, even though this is an upgrade. I think Metcalf is better than Pickens, but if they had kept Pickens around, which is what I wanted to see, and I realize his baggage, I realize what he's done and maybe forced his way out of here, but at the same time, my take on this always is when you have a guy playing for money, that guy should understand the magnitude of his actions and should be motivated to put up a lot of numbers, given the fact there's a carrot out there waiting for him at the end of this. And now they still look for number 2. Even though I think Austin's a good player, I don't know if he's number 2.
Well, Calvin Austin had one of the biggest mistakes in the game outside of what Caleb Johnson did. I mean, 2 things happened on that play. Number 1, he was in the wrong spot. And number 2, he should have caught the ball.
Yeah.
And if he's there and it hits his hands, catch it, and you go up 21-14, the Steelers probably win that game, Bob, if he doesn't screw up there. That's why Aaron Rodgers was so outspoken about it, both with his body language on the field and what he said after the game.
Yeah. Pony, as always, a pleasure. We'll see you again tomorrow night.
Bob, the Pirates lost tonight, and now they're out of the playoffs.
And they have to win out just to get back to 76, which they're not going to do. So good night, everyone. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 10:35.